Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I've been so looking forward to talking about this one, Honeybunches, despite the film's goals being merely to extract a memory from one reluctant potions teacher, Professor Slughorn, and consequently discover how to defeat Voldemort, as well as uncover what the heck Malfoy's up to. It's potentially my favourite one of the entire series. The plot is hardly an obvious recipe for a gripping tale, but the film doesn't freak out about the unusual storyline, and the result is so rewarding for lovers of Harry's wizarding world. While many may say the film is about setting everything up for the final instalment, logistic-wise, by the characters obtaining the necessary knowledge to begin the hunt for Horcruxes, I also think the film takes a breath and spends a welcome amount of time developing the existing relationships, exploring new ones with not hugely consequential but emotion-full scene work, so that come the last instalments we really do care about those involved. While the colour palette and the fact that Voldemort is very much unleashing his reign of terror over the Muggle and Wizarding worlds suggest that this film should be one depressing hailstorm, instead the film being set in the protected microcosm of Hogwarts puts it in contention for being the funniest film of them all. A contributing reason to this is that the trio are now old enough to deliver some quick wit of their own, and also that there was work laid down to broaden Harry's social network of sorts in the previous film, through Dumbledore's army. No more is Harry isolated because of mammoth reasons like people thinking he's a cheat or a liar. Rather, the only hurdle is Ronald getting some Love Boat experience, which for once takes the focus off Harry and lumps it onto Ron and Hermione. I love this film and the latter ones where they give Rupert Grint especially the space to show all the levels of Ron, which I think we all too frequently and easily overlook. From being love potioned to poisoned, cocky after the Quidditch game, in both forms of the word, to just being his usual bantery sometimes stating the obvious self with Harry when he says,
"It's just you can't break an unbreakable vow."
All the levels are so bloomin' good. Also, I know Lavender is an irritating bum that needs to turn it down a notch, but that scene where she comes into the hospital wing saying, "Where's my 1-1?" makes me say hats off to her, or rather the actress Jessica Cave, for doing that performance just casually in front of 4 acting greats. It's kind of a tough gig. But speaking of all the teenage feels that happen in this one, Honeybunches, and the sexual animal which is Cormac McLaggen, I was rewatching the Quidditch tryout scene when the size, or to be specific, thickness, of his broomstick he handles up while he's talking to Ron appeared to be monstrously big. A metaphor for something, perhaps? Then when you combine that with Cormac's finger licking to Hermione at Slughorn's dinner party. Speaking of those tryouts, the moment when Ron falls from his broom and struggles to hold on and remount it does somersaults to your mind's established beliefs on the physics of broom flying, so do yourself a favour and don't think about it too hard. The other major lightness, I guess you could say, from Half-Blood Prince is provided through Professor Slughorn. Thinking back, the tone of the Harry Potter films, or at least the events of them, always seem dictated by the teacher in the Defence Against the Dark Arts post. I don't know about you, but I kind of find the old head of Slytherin House to be kind of cute, sweet, and extremely squishy. Okay, that last one is probably just due to the armchair we're first introduced to him in, but Jim Broadbent's portrayal of him is another character from the books that seems brought to life in a way my imagination just didn't do as grand a job. His permanent face scrunch, the way he says, "Harry," as well as those chosen few words he puts together for Aragog. Make me giggle every time. Overall, I find him pretty harmless, although his whole make-the-shelf notion, while not in a life-threatening to Muggleborn's Voldemort kind of way, does promote a ranking order amongst his students. However, apart from that side of him, he just seems to enjoy making connections, talking a lot and hearing from those he's interested in, and that's not such a bad thing. And through having taught Tom Riddle, we can also see that he also just naturally took to seeing the best in those he liked. When he says to Harry,
"If the monster existed, it was buried deep within."
I guess Slughorn does seem like the kind of person it would be best to be a relative of, though, so you could tell him to put a sock in it after rattling on for too long. Also, he could be a little less obvious with his letting potential Slug Club members go by not putting Neville on waiting duty at his Christmas party, or Bilby on handing out towels in the loo. Speaking of this Christmas party of Slughorn's, let's all just take a moment of appreciation for Luna's dress, which is actually meant to look like a Christmas tree. So good. Then Snape finding Harry and Cormac behind the translucent golden drapes, confused at what they are up to, is another top moment from the entire series. Without trying to paint a 100% rosy picture of Snape by saying this, I really do wish I had his confidence to just end a conversation like he does when Harry asks him one question too many.
Travelling where?
So before we get into the more serious second half Honeybunches, I thought we could play a game that I thought up while rewatching the film and looking for little extra details, and it's called Hunt for Hedwig. All you have to do is find the little fluffy thing in the scene before the time runs out. Okay, so there's 3 seconds on the clock and a whopping 2 rounds, so get pumped, honey bunches. First round, go. And the second round, go! That was fun. Okay, moving on. When Remus and Tonks depart the Weasleys, having been there for Christmas dinner or some other dinner, and Remus is looking paranoidly out into the field beyond, Tonks mentions that they can't stay because
The first night of the cycle's always the worst.
I feel you, Remus. I'm the kind of person who hears cycles and thinks periods. Which then makes me think how despite all the unpleasantness of Rupin's werewolf condition, it's nice for him and even more nice for Tonks that she's in a relationship of a heterosexual variety where they both got their different but unique cycles to deal with. Now when Harry casts the spell Sectum Sempra at Malfoy when he's in the middle of freaking out, it's one of the not hugely plentiful moments in the series where you kind of hate Harry for doing it, or at least wish he acted more sorry. But as I've got a bit older and rewatched that scene many a times and realised that Harry just doesn't display the "oh shite" emotion that strongly, I do sort of empathise with him. As horrible as what he did is, I think most of us somewhere along the way used a phrase, perhaps a swear word or insult on someone before we knew exactly what it meant. Because we'd heard it perhaps from someone we thought was cool at the time and were learning all about who we were and so forth and just wanted to seem a little more sophisticated in a weirdly executed kind of way. So Harry's boo-boo isn't exactly the same, but the Half-Blood Prince does become this trusted source of information for him, so in a way I do see how he was tempted. The way cinema brought to life the scene where Slughorn finally hands over the crucial Horcrux memory, I think only makes the moment a little bit more beautiful and meaningful than in the books. Harry's urging of the Professor to be brave like his mother, and do something big that, while in Slughorn's mind is far from what anyone who is anyone on his shelf is known for, is a move that requires an equal amount of strength, as it requires him to be immensely vulnerable. Harry's steadying of Slughorn's hand as he slips the memory into the vial is a beautiful moment full of compassion from Harry, who sets aside the frustration he on some level has grown towards the Professor. A moment which is sort of mirrored in how Harry helps collect Snape's memories in the final instalment. Speaking of Harry's kindness, Dumbledore's quote of
"You're unfailingly kind. A trait people never fail to undervalue, I'm afraid,"
is another wonderfully put line, and even sadder when you think it was one of the last things he was able to say to Harry that wasn't instructional. The last, of course, being,
"Trust me. Trust me."
after Dumbledore pops off the astronomy tower, the final image of the film is such a seriously powerful one, and in a way sums up what will ultimately happen in the remainder of the series. As the lights in everyone's wands dissolves the dark mark above the sky, the idea of light dissolving darkness is what we're left with. Ugh. But enough talking from me, honey bunches. There are so many potential recipes to veganise in this film, honey bunches, and I hope you enjoy the ones I picked out and chose to make. They'll probably be as obvious as the fact that Harry's a hidden Horcrux when he does that Voldemort neck manoeuvre when talking to Dumbledore about Horcruxes, meaning you might go, when I show you where they are in the scene, but otherwise you might have missed them. So here we go, honey bunches, in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, but vegan. Hey honey bunches, I know I just did a whole spiel about there being so many options and me executing a whole heck of them, but I had a few major fails and things that didn't work out, so it's just these mince pies in this recipe, honey bunches, but not just, because my recipe definitely does justice to this really wonderful scene, which is super awkward, but wonderful in its awkwardness. So I made some vegan and gluten-free mince pies that taste exactly like the original. Great pastry, perfect crumbliness. Yeah, so the dry ingredients are plain flour, almond meal, coconut sugar, xanthan gum, lemon zest, and salt. Blitz that together in a food processor or mix it in a bowl. And then, as you saw with my previous apple pie in the previous video, vegan butter and coconut oil together, I don't know, just work wonders. So you blitz that again, then add some cold water, and then you want to take the dough, wrap it up, plonk it in the fridge to firm up before you cook it for optimum texture and pizzazz. So I use the store-bought like mincemeat. I know it's called a weird scary name, but it's not. It's just raisins and sultanas and apple and coconut and spices and deliciousness. So roll out your pastry. This is pretty self-explanatory. Cut out little shapes, pop it in like a mince pie tin or a muffin tin. They might just be a bit bigger in a muffin tin. whack in your filling, then I cut out little stars and put them on top. This is so satisfying. Don't know why I haven't ventured into this realm before. I do like a mince pie, but you know, I don't know, since going vegan I just haven't really felt the need to go out of my way to make them. But going forward, I've got a great recipe now, and I hope this recipe serves you well. If a mince pie recipe would help you in your festive times. I know this is not at all a time of year appropriate one when I'm posting it, but one to bookmark, hey, for 11 months time if you're watching this now in January. I hope, despite this recipe section of the video being a bit light on, is satisfying nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching, as usual, Honeybunches, and I really hope it's not possible for you to be Harry Pottered out, as there's just one more in the series, because if you haven't heard, I'm doing the part 1 and part 2 of Deathly Hallows in the one video. I'm having a blast sharing these with you, Honeybunches, so thank you for all the support. I so appreciate it. Now, thank you so much. Sending a mountain of love your way, and I'll see you super soon in the next final installment. Bye!